Hello and welcome to New Consciousness Activation. And today we have Ron with us, Ron Matthews. Ron, welcome. Ron, you call yourself an unlikely healer, and you connect science and healing. You connect physics and Qigong. And so go ahead and add any more details about you. I know you have an interesting story, so go ahead and add any more to the introduction.
Well, I actually came to energy medicine when I met Donna Eden, who was a very famous energy healer. And as you mentioned briefly in your intro, I did spend about 45 years studying and teaching various martial arts, including Tai Chi and a couple of forms of Qigong, which deal with cultivation of this elusive internal energy we all possess. The Chinese call it Qi, the Indians call it Prana. It goes by various names throughout the world. And because of my background in both martial arts and my formal training as a physicist and as an engineer, I began to observe in my practice, both martial arts and energy healing, that the behavior of this energy was not inconsistent with laws of physics, especially as they pertain to electromagnetics. And so I could get very technical, but I bore all of your listeners to death, so let's just keep it at that. And so it was a way of energy medicine, as taught by Donna Eden. I discovered a way for my two passions, one in electromagnetics, one in martial arts, to sort of collide, and I could work in both areas in the same field, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So it's most hard-nosed physicists think that things like energy medicine are a bunch of hooey. And when I was at Raytheon, I was very unpopular among my fellows because not only did I practice all this weird junk like martial arts and energy medicine, but I could defend energy medicine using the same physics within you. In fact, when I was at Raytheon, I used a very expensive program for doing electromagnetic modeling to show the auric field that surrounds the body using a simulation of the meridians in the body as though they were electromagnetic channels, like wires or waveguides. And that really pissed them off, my colleagues, because they don't like to have their dogmas challenged.
Absolutely.
Because it just throws a monkey wrench into anything. That's a whole other conversation, but that's basically why I consider myself an unlikely energy healer.
Right. Well, the idea of that you can combine electromagnetism with healing makes absolute sense to me.
You do.
I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Joe Dispenza, who talks about that when we are creating something in our life, that there is an unlimited potential around us, and we have to create an electromagnetic field to attract things to us. And our thoughts are electric, but our emotions are magnetic. And so if we combine, very clear thought of what we're creating, intention, with a very with an elevated emotion, it creates that electromagnetic field. And so, of course, it makes perfect sense, that science and spirituality really are one, So I'm wondering how you made such a leap. How did you leave behind, well, you didn't really leave behind science and engineering, but at the same time you did make this shift into healing. How did that happen?
It happened very painfully, actually. I was in the unfortunate position of having all my work go away, and it moved overseas. And so I found myself without work very suddenly. So I took that as the promptings from the angels of my higher intention, a nudge in the ribs or a swift kick in the pants saying it's time to move on with the second half of your life. And so kicking and screaming, basically. It was one of those things where through a series of serendipitous events, I was led to meet Donna completely serendipitously. And through a conversation with her and with her husband, David Feinstein, I kind of had an aha moment. And that was what eventually led me to go through her formal training, her certification program. I graduated from that back in 2008. So it was a profound life event, which gave rise to my coming into energy medicine purposefully.
Right. Yeah, I bet. And sometimes spirit works like that.
It does.
We go,
It does indeed.
yeah, we go against our will almost. So let's talk about energy healing, energy medicine. How would you define it or describe it?
I define energy medicine as a method for directly affecting the non-physical part of the human experience in such a way that it causes a change in state for the physical part of the human experience. The philosopher slash prophet, whatever they like to call him, Hermes Trismegistus, I always butcher his name, he made the observation, as above, so below. And so if we were to define that the below part of Hermes' model is the physical part of the human body, we can see that the human body is really a system of systems. We have the circulatory system, respiratory system, digestive system, endocrine, blah, 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 all these systems that coexist and link together to form the physical part of the human being. So as above, so below. So if that's true, then the above must also be a system of systems. And those systems must work together in a similar way or an analogous way to the way the human systems do. And that in fact has been my experience. I think that as of right now, we humans are probably bright enough to be able to identify and interact with about 9 different energy systems. And they don't exist in isolation. They don't have the aura, which is separate from the meridians, which is separate from the chakras or anything like that. They're all they're all subsystems of a larger system. And in fact, you can see empirically, it can be shown that as you affect various aspects of the energy system, there will be an immediate shift in the state of the physical body. This is magnificent when you're dealing with someone who's profoundly ill with like an autoimmune disease. And as you begin to work with them, you can see the tension ease out and their body shifts. And so that's my definition of energy medicine.
And what are the systems? Can you give
I can name a few of them. I've already named 3 of them. There is the aura, or the auric field, the chakras. There are 7 major ones, 7 major local ones that we are all familiar with. We all know and love the chakras. Meridians, which are the channels that are thought to conduct this elusive energy throughout our body in a way analogous to the way wires conduct electricity through your house. There's also a set of an energy system called the strange flows or the extraordinary vessel, both the same thing. Donna calls them radiant circuits. They're related to the meridians, but they're different from the meridians. And then there's, triple warmer, which is one of a meridian and a strange flow, is also a system unto itself. There's the basic grid, which is the matrix on which all of these energies appear to be built. The Celtic weave, which is it's a system, but it doesn't really fit the definition of systems that I love as an engineer. So that's a few of them.
Okay.
And so these are all things that have their own peculiar behavior, their own way of being interacted with for the purpose of shifting the state of a person who is in a state of dis-ease into a greater state of ease, if you will.
Right. And so, there's some people may be familiar with EFT or tapping.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And, people tap using the meridians.
Yes.
And that's sort of like acupressure
Yeah.
for the energy.
Actually, they're using the points you tap in EFT are some of the terminal points or the meridians. So you have bladder 2, you have the endpoints of gallbladder and papilloma right here. Stomach 1 here, you have the endpoints of governor vessel, conception vessel, stomach 30 up, kidney 27, and so on. It's all part of the same systems.
Right. And then, of course, there are people who work with clearing or re-energizing or realigning chakras, and working with clearing aura. So, but all of those are components then of energy medicine.
Very much.
Right?
Yeah.
And you work with all of them. So how do you work with them? Do you go through all of the systems, or do you just focus on something that sort of stands out?
Well, I start with the most obvious things first, because humans are multifaceted, multi-layered creatures, and so it's seldom that complete remission of a problem can be achieved in one session. It does happen, doesn't happen often, and so a lot of times, if I have a client who is suffering from an autoimmune disease, then the process of approaching the energies has to be done very, very carefully and slowly, because to do otherwise can backlash and cause the energies, which are the foundation of all autoimmune systems, to make matters worse. And so I start with a basic assessment to see how well or not well the person's basic energies are functioning. And those are revealed actually there on my website. And in Donna Eden's book, she talks about the 5-minute daily energy routine. And so the first thing I check for is to see how the energies related to the exercises in that routine are doing. I correct those. And then I go from there. It's a whole process of basically following wherever my intuition leads me.
Okay. So you work through intuition to do assessment, right?
I do now. When I first started in energy medicine, it was much more mechanistic, I guess. Ways to, you start with the meridians, because they're probably the most basic, easiest to test. So I do the test with the meridians, note which ones were out of balance, whether they were excessive or deficient in energy, and then correct those and retest, and then see how the person was doing and move on to the next. And as with anyone who, my experience has been that with anyone who works in an alternative healing field, there is an intuitive capacity which is developed as you go on. So after a while, one is able to know, I guess, before any testing is done, basically what the problem is. And you develop a capacity to see energy, so to speak. And we're not talking about seeing it, with our senses light. It's more of an intuitive seeing than that. So, I mean, that's a big discussion right there, Natalie. So basically, yeah, I use intuition. I do use kinesiologic testing if my intuition is unclear. So I have a whole raft of different tools and toys I use for different purposes.
And just to clarify for the viewers, kinesiological testing would be like muscle testing?
Yeah. So what I'll do, exactly, there's a set of energy tests which are rooted in kinesiology, and they're articulated abundantly in Touch for Health, the book Touch for Health. John Ty, I didn't pronounce his name. There's also using the acupuncture alarm points to interrogate the meridians to determine their relative balance. And I use both methods as appropriate.
Okay. And do you find that do you find that when a person is really has profound condition, let's say, that all of the systems are out of balance, or can some of them still remain in balance and some of them go out? Like, does it affect the whole system, in other words, or just parts of it?
That's a good question. I don't think anybody ever has all their systems in balance. I
Okay.
think that would be too chaotic to support life, although I mean, it's possible. I don't know.
Right.
Usually there are a couple systems which kind of scream out that I need to be addressed. And those are often the systems which, in the Eden energy medicine canon, we recognize as being the stress circuits. And that's there are two meridians which are also strange flows. One is the triple warmer meridian, and one is the spleen meridian. And if you're familiar with the theory of acupuncture, you know about the 24-hour chart, where there are 12 meridians, 24 hours in a day. And so during any 2-hour period, a meridian is going to be active. And then 12 hours later, it'll be yin. If it's active, when it's yang, when it's active, and it's yin when it's inactive. And so triple warmer and spleen have a relationship, which is triple warmer. If you were to anthropomorphize it, it would be like the National Guard for your body, or the sheriff. Its job is to ensure the survival of the species by fighting off invaders. And spleen, again, if you were to anthropomorphize it, it would be grandma. Typical grandma's house for warm chicken soup and cookies. So in triple warmer's job as the sheriff of this town, whenever it perceives a threat, it can and it does conscript energy from every other meridian in the system except for the heart. And the first place it goes after is the spleen. The spleen meridian, I'm talking about spleen meridian now, not the organ itself. Spleen meridian is the energetic foundation of the immune system. Just like the gut is the biochemical foundation of the immune system, spleen meridian is the energetic foundation of the immune system. So triple warmer steals energy out of spleen because it has to protect the fort.
Right.
Does this again and again and again, and pretty soon your immune system crashes and you have some horrible disease like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or whatever the disease du jour happens to be. So that's one of the things that I look for first, is what's going on with triple warmer and why. And really, triple warmer being out of balance is not an individual thing. We live in a world now where the entire world's triple warmer is out of balance. We're always at war. We're at war with other countries. We're at war with our neighbor. We're at war with ourselves. And so this is a social disease which we can do a lot for ourselves and for our world by getting our own energy house in order. Right.
So that's very interesting. So can people or do you advise people to test themselves, or do you?
You can. It's more difficult unless you are acutely aware of how your energies behave.
Right.
Warmer, you're better off to have somebody else do it, because triple warmer is crafty. All these energies, the meridians, meridians especially, we think of them as energy channels, but they have personalities. They are intelligences.
Right.
And so they respond to stimuli. And triple warmer is crafty because it will resist anything which it sees as a potential threat. So if you go mucking around trying to test your own triple warmer, it's going to try and say, oh, everything's fine, go back to bed.
Okay.
I mean, there are stories upon stories of instances when that has been the case. But there are things people can do to tune down their own triple warmer. And I can go through some of those later on. I mean, they're very, very simple things. Very simple.
Okay. All right. So we'll definitely come back to that. You know what I keep thinking about? I'd like to actually ask you about your scientific side, and I'd like to bring some of that information in. So how, talking about the electromagnetic field, because we're all operating within it. So for those viewers that are scientifically minded and that need a scientific, explanation for these kind of crazy sounding things, maybe you could give us a somewhat simple explanation of kind of the field that we're operating with and how you can prove it.
I'm not sure I understand your question, Natalie.
Well, you were talking about the fact that you could explain energy medicine with, through, as a scientist. So,
sure. Yeah. So one example is that whenever you have a current flowing through space, whether it's in a wire, electrical current. So current is charge moving per unit time. So if you have so many coulombs of charge moving through space, then what happens is you're going to set up a magnetic field. Ampere's law. And so in our bodies, we have an example of a current-like situation with the movement of chi. So as chi moves through a meridian, there is a field that is set up. And this was actually shown by Harry Oldfield back in, I think, around 2000. He's a physicist, retired, and I'm not even sure he's alive anymore. But he was a physicist in Great Britain. He came up with a method of photographing energies, which he called polycontrast interference photography. And what that means is, in the past, when the science community has tried, or someone connected to the science community has tried to photograph these energies we're talking about, it failed. There's another phenomenon, which when you have two dissimilar electromagnetic wave fronts colliding in the same space, what they're going to do, what you're going to get as a result, is you're going to get the algebraic sum of those two, the algebraic difference of those two, and the original two. So let's say I have a signal which is oscillating at 1 megahertz, which is 1 million cycles per second. And it's just traveling through free space. And it collides with another signal, which is at 2 megahertz, 2 million cycles per second. What will happen is you get the sum and the difference. So what I believe, I never talked to Harry, but by reading his papers, I believe I could see how he was thinking. He was thinking that, gee, if these energies exist and I can't measure them, what would happen if I were to bathe someone in broad spectrum white light and then photograph them with a high-speed digital camera? What would happen? And he did that. And what popped out was these 7 colored bands which surrounded the human body, which coincided with where we believe the chakras to be. What he did was he took advantage of this wave front superposition I just described, and he said, I bet you, I can't measure the energies, but I bet you I can measure the difference between the white and the quad erat demonstrandum. There they were.
I'm sorry, say that last sentence again, because there was a distortion.
There was a fade. I said QED, quad erat demonstrandum, which means that which is to be proven has been proven. When you finish a proof in calculus, you have to write QED to make the inside joke.
Okay.
So that's an example of how the physics of electromagnetics can be used to give us a little more of an insight into the behavior of these energy systems. There's also, I have done, for my own curiosity, I made a mathematical model. There are these massively sophisticated mathematical modeling programs for modeling electromagnetic phenomena in things like battleships and aircraft and all that junk. So on my lunchtime, when I was working at one of the big five defense contractors, I decided to use this multi-$100,000 computer program to create a model of the human body. And then I put in wires which flowed, which went in the direction, followed the path of what we believe the meridians to be. And that includes the paths internal. So any half-decent acupuncture book will show you the external paths, which is the one they stick needles in, and the internal paths, which is the ones you can't see.
Right.
I created that model, and then I excited one point in the model with a microcurrent mathematically, and let it run for a while. See what happened. When I came back a couple of hours later and post-processed the analysis, I post-processed it for the magnetic field, the H field. What I saw was an H field distribution which very closely resembled the human aura. And I thought, well, isn't that something? What do you know about that? Doggone. And so those are some examples. And if you have a facility with higher math, the equations are called Maxwell's equations. There are 4 of them. I advise your viewers to grab their favorite textbook in electromagnetic physics and knock yourself out. You too can be totally confused by higher math. They're very obnoxious. They're what are called nonlinear partial differential equations, which Oliver Heaviside said they're enough to make a grown man cry. I can attest that they do. So. Well,
we don't want to cry here, so let's move on to things that are a little more, but that's really interesting, and as I said, it makes total sense to me about that. Really, the science and spirituality of there are two sides of the same coin, and they explain the same things. So it's the same phenomenon.
And really, we worship science as being the end-all, be-all. But science really is just an approximation. And there are basically 10 dogmas of mechanistic science, Newtonian physics. We all have worshipped at the altar of Newton for years. But if you take those 10 dogmas and you flip them over and you present them as questions, they fall apart. They fall apart. Which means that science is based on, I don't want to say sleight of hand, but it's not quite as particular as Newton claimed they were. So, that again is a conversation that could go on ad infinitum. So you said that.
And I think it's Newtonian sort of mechanics and Newtonian worldviews, we are outgrowing it.
Absolutely.
It was very it reflected our reality for a long time, but I think we have stepped over that sort of limitation. We've gone past it, and so it's no longer. Yeah.
1905, we have outgrown them. And they've gotten more and more, they become less and less relevant every passing year since. Right. So. Okay,
great. So let me ask you about physical symptoms. So you kind of shift the perception or the perspective of people on what a physical discomfort means, right? So can you talk about that and how you help your clients see physical discomfort in a different light?
Yes, I have to be very clear. I do not diagnose. I can't diagnose. I'm not a doctor. I can't treat anything physical. I can't treat a disease. What I can do is I can interact with a person's energies. And saying that, that's nothing. The FDA doesn't recognize a person's energies as being anything that Merck or Pfizer or AstraZeneca can patent and make money on. So I can talk about that and not get in trouble. And so that's why I frame everything I talk about in terms of how the energies are. So having said that, very often if we're talking about physical discomfort, which can also be referred to sometimes as pain, although that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about physical discomfort. Very often when there is the existence of this physical discomfort, there is also a perturbation in the natural flow of energies. Let me explain that. Energy, by its nature, wants to move. moving energy is a harbinger of life. When your energy stops moving, it's because you are probably at the undertaker and being ready to take, buy up the last 6 feet of real estate. And so when energy is impeded from moving, then there can be physical responses to that. Mm-hmm. And for instance, in the case of pain, discomfort or pain in the knee, mm-hmm. Whenever I see someone who has pain in the knee, the first thing I check for is, what is the condition of the small intestine meridian? Mm-hmm. Or what is the condition of the stomach meridian? If there is anything that's happening that's causing the energies in those meridians to be blocked or impeded, that impedance of energy can result in physical symptoms. So mm-hmm. the thing I do is try to remove the blockage in the meridian. Mm-hmm. Because that just happens, that seems to be a correlated effect. If that makes sense.
So in other words, you're saying that the cause may not, the knee is the knee is the result of the blockage somewhere else. Is that correct?
No, I didn't say that. I said it can be correlated with.
Oh, okay.
Because if I said it was caused by it, then I'd be diagnosing it. I can't do that.
Right.
Like there is correlation does not imply causation.
Okay.
So in times when there are things like that, then I look for blockages or something going on with it, an associated meridian. If mm-hmm. it happens to be there, it's like, oh, correlation once again. And if by some happy coincidence, notice my fingers are going like this in quotes, that I restore the energy in the meridian and the knee stops hurting, well, golly, isn't that great? But that was not my intention. My intention was to restore energy flow to the meridian.
Okay.
Okay, and so I'm being very
gotcha.
in my words here because Big Brother is always watching.
Right. Gotcha. So now I don't know if you're familiar with biological decoding, which is kind of a new field in energy medicine, which looks at physical discomfort and physical symptoms as the language of the body. So, in fact, they assign each part of the body, they assign the message that the body's sending to the person. And so they help to decode, they help to interpret the communications from the body to the person. So does that, how does that, work with, I guess, how does that fit into the model of the energy medicine that you work with?
Well, I think that the model we're working with right now is somewhat impoverished because I have the energy medicine people have their method of doing things. The biological decoder have their method of doing things. The allopaths have theirs. The chiropractors have theirs. But really what these are is it's like the 4 blind men and the elephant.
Right.
One is looking at the tail, one is looking at the leg, one's looking at the trunk, and one's looking at the body of the elephant. Each one thinks they're looking at the totality or they're grabbing onto the totality of the elephant. And I see that as being the case now. I think in the future, the right answer is going to be that this is a healing by collaboration. Mm-hmm. And it's true that as one method of restoring ease or eliminating dis-ease is applied, it can ripple across, but not always. And mm-hmm. I think we could ask a different question. And that is, how could things like biological decoding and energy medicine coexist and, in fact, leverage each other's strengths so that the best outcome is gained for the client? Mm-hmm. Because right now, the primary driver in the medical system is profit.
Right.
In fact, wellness is anathema to to the prime directive of the medical system.
Right. So yeah, I want to talk to you about that because I think, as you know, the conversation here is about activating our new consciousness and evolving as human beings, taking the next steps. And I think it's fair to say that as we evolve, we're going to be moving more and more from allopathic medicine of the Western world to energy medicine. So how do you see that changing, and what does that mean to us? What does that mean to just regular people?
Well, I think it's going to be it's starting to happen now, where many people are feeling disenfranchised and even betrayed by the medical system because they're being charged. Collectively, we pay $2 trillion a year for medical care in America, and we're the sickest, fattest, least healthy, most diabetic, most paranoid nation on the face of the earth. So what is our $2 trillion for? So as people are being thrown out of the system, either by choice or by happenstance, they're going to have to seek another way. And in fact, Norm Shealy, who is the founder of the American Holistic Medical Association, made the statement that in his view, energy medicine is the future of all medicine. And Dr. Mehmet Oz has said similar things. In fact, my understanding is that Dr. Oz has a Reiki practitioner in the operating room as part of his staff.
Oh, wow.
And so among people who are not seduced by the dollars and cents of the medical system, there is a recognition that there is more to human health and healing than a bottle of pills and a scalpel.
Right.
So I think that we're in a process now where, necessity is the mother of invention. We're being forced to find our own way. And it should not come as any surprise to anyone that still, to this day, acupuncture-based systems, or systems that use the acupuncture meridian system as part of their healing, are still practiced in 75% of the world.
Right.
So, and that's 5,000 years since the Yellow Emperor wrote his treatise on internal medicine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, you did. I mean, I think eventually there will be, we won't be able to tolerate this, well, at least the medical system within the United States. And, eventually it will shift to the point where we will be allowed to, our insurance will cover, well, hopefully at some point it'll cover everything, but it will cover alternative methods where right now you're on your own if you want to try a different way of healing. So,
well, and also the things like energy modalities, including homeopathy, are not banned, but they're ignored and marginalized.
Right.
Any peer-reviewed studies are basically not published. They're certainly not funded. And so we're fighting against this huge corporate monster, which is dictating what we can and cannot do, not for any good of ourselves.
Right, absolutely, yeah. So, you talk about the energy of different conditions, right? Like the energy of the immune disorder, the energy of allergy. Can you tell us what that is and maybe talk about several conditions and how they're, how you see them, how they're different?
Well, you mentioned allergies. Allergy is a stress response. That is a response, again, from an energetic point of view. Right. That is a stressor response. So using triple warmer as our scapegoat here, whenever there is an allergen, it's because triple warmer hasn't figured out how to allow it in without causing problems. And so it goes to full-on warfare mode, which precipitates all the release of all the stress hormones as well as a histamine response. And one of the things I have worked with in my practice is using energy medicine on allergic reactions, and have had very good luck with that. And so being a stress response triple warmer is triple warmer spleen balance is the primary mechanism. Golly, let me see. As I mentioned, things like hip and knee are thought to be tagged to the small intestine. I mean, basically, I don't want to say that it's a cookbook issue, because when one is implicated, there are others implicated as well. But so, you know, whenever there is any change in state, in terms of our state of being, there's going to be a reaction in the body systems, and the first reactor is going to be triple warmer. Now, for some emotional issues, especially issues that are contained in our subconscious memory and in our genetic memory, chakras can be a great deal of use in that, because the 7 chakras, which we all know and love, are actually could be thought of as energetic file cabinets, if you will. And each file cabinet has memories about certain aspects of our lives. So the root chakra, which is located at the center of the perineum, has to do with tribal and family issues. And so any memories, if there was an unfortunate memory or memories from one's past that begin to, or have always been present in the person's life, a place to look is the chakras. There are many methods for clearing the chakras. And so we have a method we use in the Eden system, and it's very, very helpful.
So now this can explain then why people can be born with certain conditions, right? Because I mean, it doesn't have to be something that they like. For example, an allergy, they didn't have to develop this. You know, not everybody develops that reaction in their, you know, when they're an adult and they're stressed.
Right.
You know, there are a lot of kids that experience allergies, and so, you know, I'm just thinking that if our viewers ask, well, I have a child who has allergies, does that mean that he or she is just stressed out? But
no, I think that I didn't mean to cut you off, Natalie.
Okay.
I think that would oversimplify the issue. I don't want to downplay it at all. Allergies are very, very serious, and there's a whole cacophony of causes that we could look to. One of which is that we have created a very toxic world, and it's affected us as adults. And so, if we have, I'm beyond the age of having children, but my grandchildren, if they are born with allergies, then one of the questions is what's been happening upstream. Now, can that be dealt with using energy medicine? I think it can, but that's a big question that I don't have a concrete answer for, nor do I pretend to.
Okay, interesting. Now, are there any other conditions that you can tell us about that might be interesting to our viewers? Sort of like immune disorders or anything?
Sure, autoimmune disorders like rheumatoid arthritis or lupus or fibromyalgia. Those are all, the foundation of all of them is an imbalance between triple warmer and spleen. Now, each of them have their own personalities, but that's the foundational thing. And as I mentioned, I don't remember if we mentioned it on camera or if we were talking about it before we went live, so to speak, that when you're dealing with an autoimmune disorder, triple warmers already freaked out, and that's a clinical term. Triple warmers freaked out. And so if I as an energy medicine practitioner say, well, it's obviously triple warmer and spleen, and I go in great guns and begin sedating triple warmer, it can actually backlash and make the situation worse. And so it's advisable in a situation like that to go very slowly and carefully. And it can't be taken care of overnight. This is a long-term remediation. I have a client who has had rheumatoid arthritis for years, and she's fine as long as she doesn't get too stressed. If she has a stressor, she has an attack and she's back on my table within a day or two.
Mm-hmm.
If she can keep her energies in check, which is not hard to do, she's fine. And so a lot of times she'll call me in a panic and say, I need to see you. And I'll ask her what's going on. And she'll tell me, and I say, well, have you done the exercises I gave you to do? No. Well, do that before you come in and pay me for an office visit. And then you still need to see me by all means. But, you know, the meaning of the word doctor is teacher.
Oh.
I'm a doctor, but I'm extending it to energy medicine practitioner. If I can teach people to take care of their own energies, then they're going to go a long way to keeping themselves healthy, even in this toxic world we live in.
Right. Well, and this is a perfect sideways. Let's talk about that. What tools can we give our viewers? What can we do ourselves to either maintain our energy? You have a daily tune-up routine that you offer people, and maybe even other simple tests that we can run sort of to check where we are in something.
Well, there are tests, but I think it's more effective if you just look at it as being something you do every day, like brushing your teeth.
Okay.
And so it takes about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. But there are certain things you can do, like, you know, thumping some of the points, tapping some of the points, like we talked about with EFT. There are exercises like marching in place, where you march and you touch your right palm to your left leg as you march in place. And what that does is it creates this crossover energy, which is a harbinger of good health. If a person could, just taking a slight aside here, if a person could see energy and see energy as it exists in the aura, the human aura, in a person who is healthy and vibrant, it would look like a kaleidoscopic dance of these crossing over energies all throughout the aura. When a person is stressed or is not healthy, what you have is a straight up and down flow called homolateral energy flow. Whenever a person's ill, or when triple warmer has pegged the needle to the scale, guarantee the person's homolateral. And the way to restore contralateral energy, crossing over energy, is to do the cross crawl exercise, which is in the book that I'm going to be giving your viewers about, you know, Introduction to Energy Healing. It's in there. And that basically what that is a series of things you can do every single day. And like I said, if you treat it like brushing your teeth and washing your face, or for guys shaving every day, then that's the right way to do it, because then it's unlikely you're going to get sick, or if you get sick, you won't get as sick.
Okay.
And so we live in a toxic world. Toxic emotions, toxic food, toxic water, toxic electromagnetic smog. But we are, as humans, we are very, very resilient animals. And so we need to relearn, my humble opinion, we need to rediscover how to operate this magnificent machine so that we're able to adapt to this toxicity. Once we adapt to it, it's no longer toxic, by definition.
Right. And so doing those 5 or 7 or whatever minutes that you're talking about, that sort of, does that do the alignment? Does it clear away some blockages?
Yeah, it certainly helps. It is the most basic level of energy intervention you can use. Of course, if a person is suffering from a disease, it's not going to cure it. But it's going to make you feel less hopeless, I guess you might say. It's kind of like, for your viewers who have practiced EFT, if you're working on a particular problem, either emotional or physical, and you do several rounds, 10, 14 rounds of EFT, when you're done, you feel as though you've just been totally cleared, like you're a limp rag. And it can be the same thing with energy. Whenever a person moves energy, or has their energy moved in a positive direction, you feel like you're kind of wiped. You can feel like you're kind of wiped out. I've had clients lay on the table for 5 or 10 minutes just going, oh, I'm so relaxed. Because when you begin to shift energies back to where they're supposed to go, it's a huge release. It's a huge release of tension, a huge release of unnecessary energy.
Right. So I'm just curious, when you do tapping as part of the routine, do you go through the whole routine of all the points, or specific?
Specific ones. Specific ones. The main ones are right here.
The collarbone?
Right. So this is the notch, the suprasternal notch. So the knobby into the collarbone, for most people of average build, if you go out by an inch and down by an inch, there's a little hollow there. That's where the 27th point on the kidney meridian is. It's called K27. If you thump those like this, vigorously. You don't tap, you thump.
Right.
Also, right in the middle of the sternum, the breastbone, midway between the xiphoid and the notch. If you thump right there, thump hard enough so you can feel it, that's where the thymus is. And our thymus begins to sag after the age of 40 or so. So you thump this and it can revitalize it. And then right at the tip of the bottom floating rib is a neurolymphatic reflex point, which pertains to the spleen meridian. So we thump those. You can't see it because I'm off camera. When I say tap, I don't just tap lightly. I'm thumping.
Okay.
Get medieval, you know. And it really, I mean, it's this, doing this, the K27 points, when people have the 3 p.m. sag, you know, you gotta have a cup of coffee because you get nothing in the tank.
Right.
If you just thump these for about 30 seconds and notice the difference, it takes about another 30 seconds for it to hit, but you get this big rush of energy. It's like, I feel better. You know?
It's better than coffee.
Damn, it's ever. It's free, you know. So
Yes.
you can't do it too many times. You can do it as many times as you want.
Right.
So.
And I like that you said that you're a healing practitioner, but before people go to you can be a teacher. You can teach them, and those seem to be things that are. And I think that's the direction of the true medicine. You know, the medicine that teaches people the things that they can do on their own instead of being completely dependent on somebody else, and finding, the things that we can do to maintain ourselves.
You know, that's the bottom line, Natalie, is that we have the sovereignty by birth to be able to take charge of our own health. And we have been lied to until we don't have it.
Right.
So this is a way. Energy medicine is one way of many that can be used to help reclaim that birthright of living a healthy, happy life. There are many others. I mean, meditation. If your viewers aren't meditating, then please start. And if you meditate for 20 minutes a day, unless you don't have time. If you don't have time, then meditate for an hour a day.
Right. Which is what I do, because I don't have time.
Well, I wish I could claim that's mine, but it's not.
Right. Okay, excellent. So, I ask everybody in these conversations as we look forward. I want to get our viewers excited about the potential of the new human and potential of what can happen as we evolve. So what are you excited about in terms of what's our potential in terms of, the energy medicine and where we're heading and what's possible for us as we take steps there?
I'm excited about the fact that the conversation is happening now more than it probably ever has before. I mean, we see it all the time in the political arena, with all the stuff that's going on in politics. It's a big poop storm. But as Will Smith pointed out, talking about racism, he said racism isn't getting worse; it's getting filmed.
Right.
And so the same thing is true, where now we have forums like this where we can ask questions and we can say, what are the viable alternatives? What are your alternatives? I'll tell you mine. And I think that's very healthy. And to a greater degree, I think as people, believe it or not, I think as people in I don't know what the classification is, but people who are between 35 and 50 who are really looking for alternatives. They're fed up with the status quo. So that to me is very exciting. And if seek and ye shall find. You won't find it if it's there to be found. If you seek it, you will find it. And so if you really want to take charge of your health, just set that as an intention.
Right.
Start asking questions and never, never stop asking questions and never stop thinking.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Thank you, Ron.
Well,
So as we are wrapping up, I'd like to give you a chance to talk about anything you're up to, where people can find you. They will have the link to your page, of course, but do you want to talk about the gift that you're offering?
Sure. I'm going to be offering a PDF, which is called Intro to Energy Healing, and it basically is a detailed dig down on the 5-minute routine. So I'm going to give that as a gift. What I'm working on right now, I'm still seeing clients, but I'm working on some other things that are more in tune with getting us back in touch on friendly terms with our own subconscious, the power of our own subconscious. So what I'm working on right now is proprietary. I can't talk about it in detail, but that's what I'm excited about. So maybe we'll have this conversation again next year, and I'll have a whole new set of things to excite you about. So
that's exciting. Yes, I can't wait. Excellent. So Ron, thank you so much. This was really, really enlightening, and I hope that our viewers got a lot out of just empowerment out of the fact that we are energetic beings and we can heal ourselves, and we can work with each other to create that healing. We don't have to rely on all the time on allopathic medicine, although it definitely has its place.
It does have its place. It does.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so thank you so much for your time. Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.